Stacy sat in the teacher's lounge, contemplating what she, now being the vice principal of the school, should do. At 36, unmarried and never having been married, she found herself pregnant. While the prospect of having a baby was certainly a good thing, she pondered how to explain the situation when living in a small village where everyone knows each other. Who could the baby's father be if she wasn't dating anyone? Stacy had an option to terminate the pregnancy, but she dismissed it immediately, considering her age. Besides, she wasn't sure how the procedure would go and if she would be able to have children afterward. Stacy hadn't yet figured out how to announce the imminent arrival of the baby to her family, friends, and colleagues. But one thing was certain, she would keep the baby. Her thoughts were interrupted by Elizabeth, the literature teacher, who was her best friend. "You've been quite pensive this past week. Care to share with me?" Elizabeth inquired. "Elizabeth, how about you come over to my place tonight? We'll have some tea, chat," Stacy suggested. She had already decided that she would confide her secret in her friend tonight. "Well, if my husband doesn't show up drunk tonight, I suppose we could have a cozy evening. You know how it is, once Friday rolls around, my dear occasionally hosts gatherings with the guys," Elizabeth replied. "Let's hope that doesn't happen," Stacy said thoughtfully. She really wanted to open up to her friend tonight. Keeping her secret to herself had become tiresome, and she sought moral support. As the workday ended, Stacy headed home. On her way, she stopped by the store and bought a small cake to accompany the tea. She hoped Elizabeth's husband would be sober tonight. Her wish came true when her friend called shortly after. "Put the kettle on, I'll be over soon." "What should I bring for tea?" Elizabeth asked. "Don't worry about it, I bought a cake." "We'll feast like royalty," Stacy replied. Soon, Elizabeth was sitting at Stacy's place. The woman bluntly asked her friend, "All right, spill it. What's going on with you, and why the cake?" "The reason is quite simple, soon I'll be living not alone, but with a baby," Stacy replied. After these words, her friend choked on her tea and stared at her hostess in utter amazement. Stacy had expected such a reaction, so she didn't rush to spill everything at once. She waited for her friend to recover from the news before continuing. "Do you remember a few months ago when I went to a seminar in the city? Well, there I met my ex-boyfriend, the one I used to date. You remember that story, right? When he went off to study in the city after high school and then fell in love with another girl and dumped me?" Stacy recounted. "Of course, I remember. Wasn't it Ben? He went off to college right after high school," Elizabeth recalled. "Yes, exactly. It was him. So, I met him there. Turns out, he got divorced and moved to the same place where I was attending the seminar. And by chance, we bumped into each other, reminisced about the time we were together. And then something just happened between us, and we ended up in his hotel room. I hope I don't have to detail what happened in bed. I am married myself, after all," Stacy said with a smile, looking at her friend. Elizabeth was somewhat shocked by the news. She had long wished for her friend to settle down, but Stacy always had bad luck with men. And now, here she was, announcing her pregnancy out of the blue. Elizabeth said, "Why didn't you tell me about this sooner? Aren't I supposed to be your friend? Anyway, never mind. Let's move on. What are you planning to do now? The baby will definitely be born. I'm tired of muddling through life alone, and I'm not getting any younger. I just don't know how to avoid gossip, though." "You know how the rumor mill starts churning," Stacy replied with a sad smile. At that moment, she was glad she had confided in her friend. Well done for keeping the baby. But hold on, about the gossip. Have you told your admirer about this news? Elizabeth asked with concern. Why would I tell him? We never made any promises to each other. We just got carried away by passion at the moment, that's all. And I spun him a yarn about living in a happy marriage and having everything good in my life. So, there's no point in Ben finding out anything. Why would I burden him with a child? Stacy replied. Well, you're being foolish. And considering your position at the school, Elizabeth exclaimed incredulously. The woman couldn't comprehend Stacy's behavior. Stacy's lie just didn't make sense to her. After all, Stacy had been living alone for a long time. Her personal life was non-existent, and here was a chance to be with a man and start a real family. Elizabeth expressed her frustration to Stacy, who responded, It's too late to change anything now, Elizabeth. What's done is done. Ben and I are on different paths in life. Understand, if he were interested in me, he would have inquired about me a long time ago, regardless of my supposed marriage. But that didn't happen. Let's talk about the gossip instead. That's a more serious topic for me right now. Well, you're actually right that Ben could have shown interest in you. Anyway, forget about it. And about the gossip, forget it. People will talk for a while, and then they'll calm down. You don't owe anyone an explanation. Ultimately, it's your personal life, and it's up to you to decide how to live it, not to outsiders. Elizabeth fervently stated. You're right about personal space, but people will still look askance. I feel like they'll pounce on me as soon as my belly shows up, Stacy said wearily. Yeah, forget about all the talk. But actually, say something like this, my fiancé is serving on contract and will be coming soon. And you two will be living together. At least for the time being, the gossip will die down, and you can handle the pregnancy normally. That's the best option. Elizabeth enthusiastically suggested. Well, why not? There's reason in that. And you're my hero, after all. Stacy replied, reassured by her friend's words. After chatting a bit more, Elizabeth went home. Life went on as usual. Stacy decided that when her belly became visible, she would tell everyone interested the story that her future husband was serving on contract and would soon join her. And soon enough, it happened. As Stacy's belly grew, many curious people appeared, asking direct questions. Stacy adeptly told her fabricated story. Among the acquaintances, there were those who believed it and those who thought that the vice principal was spinning tales. Among them was the elderly school principal, Mr. Brown, who summoned Stacy for a talk. All right, darling, you can tell everyone fairy tales, but you shouldn't do that to me. There's no husband in sight, is there? He asked sternly. There isn't, sir, Stacy replied firmly. You know, sweetheart, I'm not a green girl, I've seen a bit of life. So let's not play cat and mouse with me. Answer honestly, I'm not going to spread women's gossip around the corners. Whatever you say here will stay within these walls, the school principal said sternly. There's no husband. You're right about that. This is my baby, and I'll be raising him alone, Stacy replied quietly. Of course, it's your baby. No one's disputing that. Well, let's forget about this conversation. Go back to work, the school principal said quietly. He thought about the woman. It wouldn't be easy for her, especially in the collective. Many of the teachers had their eye on her position, so they would gladly see the vice principal fall. And Stacy, after the conversation with the principal, was in high spirits. Another person knew her secret and didn't judge her. She told Elizabeth about this conversation, who, in turn, was happy for her friend and morally supported her. Time passed, and the pregnancy went smoothly. Stacy gave birth to a daughter at the expected time. Elizabeth and her husband greeted her at the maternity hospital. When Stacy returned home, she was surprised. Her friend and her husband had given her a baby crib with a canopy, as well as a bunch of baby essentials like rompers, crawlers, bonnets, and rattles. Handing over the gifts, Elizabeth whispered, "Don't spend too much on clothes. I still have some decent stuff left from my daughter. I'll give them to you." "Oh, thank you, my friend. You always come to my rescue in difficult times," Stacy said tearfully. "Oh, come on. That's what real friendship is for," Elizabeth replied, hugging her friend. Months went by, and Stacy enjoyed taking care of her daughter. She liked the role of a caring mother. Her friend often visited, sharing school news. And soon, Kimmy turned 1 year old. Stacy looked at her daughter and saw a copy of her father in her. The girl looked a lot like Ben, even Elizabeth noticed it. "Wow, Kimmy looks so much like her dad. She only got your wavy hair and plump lips." Another 6 months flew by. Stacy had already endured all the public scrutiny, as people understood that there was no fiancé for her. Stacy stoically endured all the questions on this topic. She tried to remain silent in such moments or just walked away without saying anything. Soon, her friend came to her with a proposal. "We have a new gym teacher at our school, Dylan," her friend said with a wink. "What does that have to do with me?" Stacy asked puzzledly. "Well, we decided to set you up with him. He's a single man." "True, he's a bit younger than you. He's 30, Elizabeth replied. "What? Are you out of your mind? And who's we?" Stacy asked irritably. "Listen, don't show me your stubbornness. I've decided, and I already have a plan on how to do it. And don't argue with me," Elizabeth said sternly. Then she told her friend about the upcoming school cleanup day. All the teachers would be cleaning up in the courtyard, and Stacy needed to take a stroll near the school building on that day, and then Elizabeth would arrange everything. Stacy realized that arguing with her friend was pointless, so she agreed to this scheme. She thought it would be just an ordinary walk, not a chance to meet someone. Stacy had long waved off her personal life. For her, the most important thing now was raising her daughter and taking care of her. On Saturday, Stacy went for a walk with Kimmy. As promised to her friend, she went to the school grounds, where teachers and students were cleaning up the courtyard. Elizabeth immediately noticed her friend with the stroller. The literature teacher approached the PE teacher and suggested, "Dylan, let me introduce you to our vice principal. She's currently on childcare leave until the child is 3. You'll have to meet her in the future anyway." "With pleasure," the man replied. "Let's go." And the couple headed toward Stacy. Elizabeth introduced her friend to the young man. Stacy shook the man's outstretched hand and noted to herself that he was handsome. They struck up a conversation about the school and then about the weather. Elizabeth discreetly retreated. Stacy noticed that Dylan was interested in her, just as she was in him. Elizabeth was also a good psychologist, so for some reason, she was sure that these two would be drawn to each other. And she wasn't wrong. Soon, Dylan started visiting Stacy. He was tactful in his courtship and not pushy. Stacy couldn't believe she had such a gallant suitor. She told her friend, "You can't imagine how polite he is, not a hint of vulgarity." "Well, there you go, and you didn't even want to meet him." "Oh, my heart tells me that someone will be walking down the aisle soon, and Kimmy will have a dad," Elizabeth said. "What are you talking about?" "We haven't even kissed yet," Stacy replied embarrassedly. "Come on, it's easy." Watch how it's done, her friend said, laughing, and pulled Stacy close, giving her a big kiss on the cheek. Oh, stop it. You're always joking around, Stacy replied, laughing. Meanwhile, she actually dreamed of the strong embrace of this man and his passionate kisses. A month passed since the PE teacher started visiting Stacy's home. He didn't rush things in their relationship, as he had already gone through one marriage, which, in the end, didn't survive the trials of life and ended in divorce after 3 years. The man wanted to make sure that this woman was indeed the one fate had sent him. And one day, Dylan decided that Stacy was perfect for the role of a wife. She was neat, a good housekeeper, and a caring mother. And that was all he needed. So, he made a proposal. I've been crossing your threshold for the past 2 months. I think it's time to make our relationship official. Will you marry me? He asked. I thought you'd never ask, Stacy replied, laughing. She had been waiting for these words for a long time, and now, hearing them, she was incredibly happy. She dreamed of having a full-fledged family. She wanted to proudly wear a wedding ring and walk down the street with her husband, holding her daughter's hand. So, you didn't answer. Is that a yes? Dylan asked puzzledly. Of course, yes, Stacy whispered, and the man enveloped her in his arms, kissing her passionately on the lips. The couple filed a marriage application. Soon, they had a modest wedding, attended only by the closest people. Stacy was very happy. She had her beloved husband and daughter. She thanked her friend for introducing her to Dylan. Elizabeth was very happy that her friend was now happy in her married life. But the happiness in the family didn't last long. 4 months later, Kimmy suddenly fell ill. Stacy was horrified because, until then, her daughter had only had minor illnesses like colds, and nothing serious. This time, things were much more serious. The girl lost weight, and her skin became translucent. Initially, Stacy treated her daughter at the local hospital. Elizabeth saw how exhausted Stacy was and how she worried about Kimmy. She called her friend for a frank conversation. You've been treating your child for 3 weeks now, and there's been no improvement. What are the doctors telling you? Elizabeth asked. Well, nothing useful. They can't even give a precise diagnosis. One doctor says one thing, and another doctor says another. But one thing I understand for sure, it's something related to her hemoglobin, Stacy replied wearily. This is unacceptable. You need to go to the city urgently, where there are better specialists. Let them examine the girl there. Don't object. You know I won't advise you anything bad, Elizabeth said. I don't even know. Maybe you're right, Stacy said sadly. She was very tired lately. Of course, I'm right. And you know, let's not delay the trip. You can't joke about illnesses. So, get ready within 3 days and go. Don't worry about your husband. We'll help with household chores if needed. My daughter will always bring a bowl of soup to Dylan. By the way, what does he say about this? Elizabeth asked. He's been silent lately. I even think that with our daughter's illness, my husband, how should I put it? Well, he's been distant, I guess, Stacy replied quietly. You probably imagined that. Men, in general, react strangely to life's troubles. Dylan is just experiencing fear for the child's fate in his own way, Elizabeth said reassuringly. Now, the woman wanted to support her friend. She understood how difficult it was for her friend right now. After the conversation with Elizabeth, Stacy told her husband that she was planning to go to the city to have their daughter examined. She immediately said that she didn't know how much time it would take. Dylan listened to his wife's story calmly. The man just said, If you've decided, then go. The woman expected some questions from her chosen one, but they didn't come. Her husband simply turned on the TV and started watching a football match. Stacy was angry with her husband. She thought that Dylan was completely indifferent to their daughter's illness. But then she remembered her friend's words and scolded herself internally. Maybe she was just overthinking things. Maybe her husband was just processing the situation in his own way. 3 days later, Stacy and her daughter were in the city at the polyclinic. They were immediately hospitalized, and from that day on, tests were taken, and the girl was intensively examined. Stacy anxiously awaited the doctor's verdict. And she finally got it. Dr. Tom said. Anemia, the doctor said. He continued to talk for a while, gesturing with his hands, but Stacy didn't hear him. She was thinking, why her? Why did her daughter have to be afflicted with this terrible illness? A myriad of questions raced through her mind. Stacy was brought back to reality by a touch on her shoulder. Are you listening to me? The man standing next to her said. Stacy looked at the man in the pristine white coat with a distracted gaze and asked him to repeat what he had said earlier. Understanding the woman's state, the doctor calmly explained her daughter's condition once more. Later that day, Stacy called her husband. She cried into the receiver, lamenting her life. She hoped for support from her husband, but he remained silent. Unable to bear it, Stacy shouted. Why are you silent, like a heartless jerk? Say something. Don't you understand that the doctors can't determine the root cause of this illness? What do you want to hear from me? Dylan responded irritably. At least some sympathy, Stacy said tearfully. I sympathize. I have to go to class, Dylan said curtly before hanging up. Stacy stared at the phone in horror. She couldn't understand how her beloved could respond so coldly. She was at a loss. Stacy felt a chill inside her. She desperately wanted to rid herself of this unpleasant feeling and decided to call her friend. Hi, Elizabeth. Am I interrupting you? Stacy asked. Hi, no, my classes are already over. How are things over there? Her friend replied. Everything is bad, anemia. The doctors are struggling to find the root cause of the illness. I called my husband, but he responded dryly to everything. I don't understand what's happening to him, Stacy said, tears streaming down her face. All right, calm down quickly. There's no need to spread gloom, you might scare Kimmy. Anemia is not a death sentence. The doctors are with you, so you're under the care of specialists. So, stop your panic completely. I'll drop by Dylan's place today and have a talk with him, then I'll call you back later. Agreed? Elizabeth reassured her. Agreed. Do I even have a choice? Stacy replied, calming down. At that moment, she was infinitely grateful to her friend, who found words of support in a difficult moment. Stacy wanted the evening to come quickly to find out about her husband. As promised, Elizabeth went to Dylan's place. He was cooking scrambled eggs at the time. The woman looked closely at the man, then sternly said, I don't understand you. Your daughter is seriously ill, and you don't even deign to support your wife. How am I supposed to understand you? Elizabeth, I respect you a lot, and I know you're Stacy's best friend. But you see, I'm also a human being. I'm also worried about Kimmy. But understand, as soon as our daughter fell ill, my wife simply stopped noticing me. And I also need her care, which isn't there. I want to see a loving wife by my side, not a hysterical woman, Dylan said quietly. Well, wait. You're going through a difficult period in your life, and you need to support each other, not drift apart. First and foremost, You should be concerned about your daughter's health. You should treat Stacy with understanding. She expects support from you, from her beloved," Elizabeth replied. "All right, I'll call her today," Dylan said tiredly. After Elizabeth left, Dylan called his wife. He gently asked her not to worry and apologized for his formal response earlier. Stacy was delighted with her husband's behavior. She was lost in guesses. What had her friend told Dylan that made him change so drastically? 3 weeks passed since Stacy and her daughter had been lying in the hospital. Kimmy was slightly better, and they were discharged. The doctor prescribed many medications to fully restore the child. With the last of her money, Stacy bought medical supplies, and soon she and her daughter were home. She rejoiced that all the troubles were behind them. But the joy was short-lived. Literally a month later, the disease began to progress again. Without hesitation, Stacy immediately went to the city to the hospital. Once again, hospitalization, tests, examinations. Another prolonged treatment, but with no visible results. Stacy returns home, where her friend comforts her. "Why are you moping around? Here's my advice: go to another city and have Kimmy examined in a good private clinic. But it has to be specialized, dealing with these illnesses. But it takes a lot of money for that. I have some savings, but they probably won't be enough. If the medication is so expensive, what can we say about hospitalization in a decent clinic?" Stacy replied with tears in her eyes. "Don't worry, we can lend you the money, then we'll settle up later. Right now, the main thing is to cure Kimmy. Everything else is nonsense," Elizabeth said. And Stacy followed her friend's advice. The woman went to another city with her daughter. They were admitted to the clinic. Again, tests were taken, lots of doctors and examinations, a pile of prescriptions for medications. The money quickly ran out, and Stacy called her husband asking him to transfer her some funds. Her husband said there was no money because he had bought a scooter. Stacy was in a daze. How could her husband buy a scooter when he knew the money was needed for their daughter's treatment? She shouted into the phone to Dylan. "So, when you borrowed money from your friend, you had money, but you didn't give it to me, and just bought some junk. How could you do this? Don't start a scene, I'll send you some in a bit." "That's it, I'm busy," Dylan disconnected with these words. Stacy had no choice but to call her friend and borrow the money. She readily transferred the funds. After some time, Stacy and her daughter were discharged. The doctor said they had done everything possible, and now only time would tell. They couldn't help anymore. The woman returned home with a heavy heart. In her heart, she was angry at her husband. After all, while she and Kimmy were in the hospital for a long time, he didn't even call once. But what worried her more was how to alleviate her daughter's suffering, as with each passing day, her child was fading away. Stacy came home with her daughter. She put the little girl to bed as she was tired from the journey. The woman decided to tidy up the house and prepare dinner for her husband. While cleaning one of the rooms, she saw a beautiful lace robe that didn't belong to her. And then she noticed an original hairpin on the shelf near the mirror. Stacy looked at the findings puzzled. She couldn't understand where these items came from. The homeowner didn't even consider the thought that her husband could be unfaithful. The woman impatiently awaited her husband's return from work. Dylan soon came home. He looked at his wife in surprise and asked, "Why didn't you call and warn me? I would have met you." Stacy approached her husband and asked for the phone, then pointed out to him 8 missed calls from her. It was only at that moment that the pieces of the puzzle started to fit together in Stacy's mind: women's belongings in the house, missed calls, her husband's coldness. Stacy handed him the robe and hairpin, asking, How long have you been having fun behind my back while our daughter is sick? What do you mean, having fun? Are you talking nonsense? Dylan said irritably and continued. I came home tired from work, and you're talking this nonsense. Let's eat. I haven't had lunch today. This is not nonsense. Don't make a fool out of me. We haven't even celebrated our anniversary yet, and you're already jumping to other Marias? Aren't you ashamed? Stacy said, trying to hold back her tears. You want the truth? Well, here it is. You only see our daughter, and I've become nothing to you. I need affection and care too. I'm a man, not a eunuch. In short, our family life seems to be over. How I could connect with you, I don't even understand. You only see your child beside you. So live with her. The man said angrily, then, grabbing his bag, started feverishly throwing his things into it. Stacy was stunned by these words. She silently watched Dylan's actions. Tears were streaming down her face, but she didn't wipe them away. She silently watched her husband for about 10 minutes, then wiped away her tears with the back of her hand and quietly said, You're not a good person, and it's not you who's leaving right now, it's me, as a jerk, pointing to the front door with the words, Get out of here. Dylan laughed in response and threw a phrase. Console yourself, old maid, maybe it'll be easier for you. Stacy didn't respond at the moment. She dreamed of one thing, for this person to simply disappear from her home forever. She wanted to forget about him like a terrible dream, a nightmare. Soon, Dylan threw the keys, grabbed his bags, and left. Stacy collapsed onto the couch, feeling drained, and only at that moment did she give in to her emotions. She didn't notice as the front door opened and Elizabeth entered, who already understood that a scandal had occurred in this family. The friend approached Stacy and hugged her, saying, Let yourself cry, it'll feel better, and then let go of the situation. Don't keep it bottled up inside. How long have you known about this? Stacy asked through tears. About the affair? Elizabeth clarified. Yes. About a month. I was shocked myself at the time, but I didn't tell you over the phone because you needed strength for Kimmy. I found out in a simple way Dylan didn't go to work. I called him, but he didn't pick up. In the evening, I went to him. I thought I'd see if anything needed to be bought or if I could help with chores. As I approached your house, a nurse, Gloria, came out of it. Yes, you know her. At that moment, I didn't think much of it. I thought, since Dylan was sick, maybe the nurse was there. Elizabeth paused, but Stacy interrupted the pause. Go on. Well, I knocked on the door, and your husband opened it with a bare torso, saying, Gloria, my love, have you returned? He thought the nurse had returned. But then I showed up in person. Of course, he was stunned and started assuring me that I had misunderstood everything. But I'm not a fool. And then I heard from Mrs. Lilly that Gloria was messing around with Dylan. They were often seen together on the scooter. That's how it goes. Yes, you would have figured it out without me. Stacy wasn't crying anymore. She was contemplating how she couldn't see the despicable and low nature of the man she was married to. Then she stood up and suggested her friend go have some tea. Suddenly, Elizabeth exclaimed, Forget about your adulterous goat right now. I actually rushed here with good news for you. Your Kimmy will be healed. Apparently, someone from the former residence returned to the village and is truly performing miracles. I don't know who they're talking about exactly. This miracle worker has only been here for 2 days. In short, he heals people. A whole crowd of people has lined up to see him. He heals them with some methods of his own. People are lining up with gout, rheumatism, and even cancer. Let's go, get ready, and let's head there. Yes, only a miracle will help us with Kimmy. Oh, and the princess woke up, Stacy said, seeing her daughter weakly move her hand. Come on, get the little one ready, and let's go, urged the friend. Stacy picked up her daughter and started dressing her. Kimmy frowned slightly, but her mom continued to fasten her knitted sweater. Soon, the women with the stroller were walking to the other end of the village. As they approached the house, they saw a long line. Stacy looked around with horror at the large number of people and said to her friend, "We won't be able to wait here for so long. We'll get an appointment, at the very least, in a week. Just look at how many people there are." "Hey, don't panic. Did you forget who's with you?" said the friend, winking. And Elizabeth went to the front of the line. Pointing at Stacy, she explained something to the people. As it turned out, she asked people to let the mom with her child go ahead. Some grumbled indignantly, saying they had been here since early morning. However, those who knew Stacy's situation let the woman go ahead. The mom and her daughter entered the hut. There stood a tall man with his back to them. Stacy quietly said, "Hello. You're our last hope. We have no one else to turn to. Please help my daughter." At these words, the man's shoulders twitched, and he abruptly turned to the visitors. Stacy gasped involuntarily. Standing before her was Kimmy's father, Ben. Tears welled up in Stacy's eyes, and she whispered softly, "Ben, help my little one. They say you work miracles." "Well, miracles might be too grandiose a term, but I can do something. And you're just as beautiful as ever. It's as if time passes you by. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. For now, lay the little one on the bed. While I examine the girl, you can briefly tell me about her condition." With these words, the man, leaning on his cane, limped over to Kimmy. Stacy immediately thought something had happened to Ben. But then she began to recount her daughter's illness. She saw Ben furrow his brow as he examined the girl. When the man finished examining the little one, he said, "You'll have to leave her with me. It's good she came to me in time. I need to help her. If it had been a few days later, it would have been too late. Can I stay with her?" "I can't just leave her alone here," Stacy pleaded, looking at the healer with a pitiful gaze. "This is my daughter, after all." "Yes, Ben," Stacy replied. She understood that there was no point in lying in this situation. "Okay, stay. But how will your husband react to this? After all, it's not very proper to spend the night at another man's house," Ben said. "I don't have a husband from today. Officially, I'm still married, but I'm filing for divorce," Stacy said. "Okay, we'll talk about that later. For now, take this decoction and give it to your daughter. And I'll see other people in the meantime," the woman heard in response and rushed to follow Ben's instructions. As soon as Stacy fed the child with the decoction, she rushed out onto the street and told everything to her friend. The friend was surprised by this turn of events, but was pleased. She understood that the father would do everything possible to save his own child. Until late in the evening, Ben saw people. He palpated someone's back with his hands, pressed on points, and then gave them herbs, explaining how to prepare the decoction. Stacy watched the man's actions and marveled at the twists of fate. She had just learned about her husband's infidelity today, and today she had met her beloved person again. She realized that her feelings hadn't cooled down yet as soon as she saw Ben. Once Ben was free, he asked Stacy to tell him about herself. The woman didn't hide anything and honestly told him everything. Then Ben asked a question. Why didn't you tell me about our daughter's birth? Well, it was just a moment of passion between us, and I felt awkward tying you to me with my pregnancy, Stacy said, feeling embarrassed. Well, you're a silly one. We've wasted so much time together. Since then, I've been obsessed, constantly thinking about you. I would have found you, but your words that you were married and happy stopped me. And it turns out you lied to me. Ben said affectionately, then added, I love you very much, and I love our daughter too. Now we'll be together, and our little one will definitely get better, I promise you. And now I want to hug you tightly and kiss you. Stacy was glad to hear these words, but didn't rush into the arms of her beloved immediately. She wanted to know what had happened to Ben, why he limped, and how he acquired this mysterious gift of healing people. She asked all these questions to the man, who responded, It's all very mundane for me. I was driving to work in my car and lost control on a turn. As a result, a car accident, and I ended up in the hospital. I spent a couple of days in a coma, and after that, this gift appeared. Initially, I helped one doctor get rid of migraines, and then a friend to cure a hernia. And so it went on. But as you can see, I can't get rid of my cane, Ben said quietly. That's okay, I need you even with a cane. Or rather, we need you, the woman nodded towards the sleeping Kimmy. And then she rushed into the embrace of her beloved husband. Ben healed his daughter within a month. Stacy divorced her husband and married Ben. Now they lived as a happy family. Soon, they had twins, 2 boys named Archie and Derek. When the boys turned 3, Stacy went back to work, and Ben continued to heal people.